Is WoW worth coming back to? Well, a sexy new raid is out, new Mythic Plus season with fan-favorite dungeons to do, and outdoor events give actual good gear for alt. Is this enough for you to come back? Yes, and I will tell you why in this video.
All of Azeroth shall burn, for rock must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Let's take the raid first. Whether you played the last 2 raids or not, this is clearly the best raid in Dragonflight and way better than anything Shadowlands brought as well. Yes, I am putting it ahead of Castle Nathria. So realistically, Amirdrassil is the best WoW raid we have had in over 3 years. Who knows, by the end maybe it will even be better than the BFA raids as well. Definitely kicks Uldir's ass for sure. Why though? What's so special about Amirdrassil? The first obvious answer is that it is the Emerald Dream. Surely most WoW players already know what the Emerald Dream is or have at least heard of it by now. It's incredibly thematic towards nature, which is a big change of pace from anything we have had in the game since probably Legion's Emerald Nightmare. Raids themed around nature are actually pretty rare. So rare that the last I remember outside Emerald Nightmare might actually be Zul'Gurub in classic WoW. But that's just one side of the coin. The other is the execution of the raid. It's big. And by big, I mean the whole space is huge and feels incredibly refreshing from the tight and closed off boss rooms we have had so far. The ceiling is high, the outside creeps inside, and it just gives a much more pleasant vibe to be in than the claustrophobic raids we have had in the last couple of years, with the exception of maybe Sepulchre, I guess, but ugh. The colors are also very relaxing, light blues and light greens mostly. And I say mostly because if the theme of the raid would have been consistent, it would bore you after a month or so of progressing, because there is contrast in Amirdrassil with fire. Combine all of this with the Firelands and you have a duality of themes that contrast beautifully. For all the relaxing boss rooms and colors we get in the first half of the raid, the intense fire gives a nice change of pace and scenery to keep it refreshing. And the bosses are the same: trees, druids, fire lords, fire worms, and a dragon. The diversity is there, and all of this is important since you will be spending your time in here for a while if you are a raider. Might as well be a pleasant reason to log in for. But hey, maybe you're not a raider, but a Marcelian&Online enjoyer. Haha, segue. If you like our content, consider checking our Patreon page as well to support what we love to do. You will gain access to a bunch of cool stuff like bloopers, early videos, and personalized wallpapers with your character's transmog on them. Check the link in the description if you want to support the team so we can get more of these videos out there for you.
This is the burst, this is the double lust for Genji. There's the pop from the breath doing 6% of the boss's HP.
10
That's
seconds.
going to be enough. It's not even close.
Also, if Mythic Plus is your jam, then this season we have a refreshing change of dungeons in our season pool. First, to get the incoming comments out of the way, the old dungeons. I do need to address this because people comment on old dungeons not being new content, and that's partially true. And by partially, I mean that 1, Dragonflight has 8 dungeons with 1 mega dungeons already, so it did come with its share of new content. But 2, the M+ dungeon pool is not supposed to be the expansions dungeons only to be considered good. That's not a rule, because if it did, you would have been burned out by doing the exact same dungeons for 3 seasons straight, which people did before and got burned out before. Whether you like old dungeons being current content or not, we can all agree that it's refreshing for each season to have a totally different set of dungeons to do, mostly because M+ is spammable, replayable content. 1 full season of the same 8 dungeons is already enough. Spreading it to 2 or 3 more seasons is just too much. So the Ataldazar, Waycrest Manor, Blackrook Hold, and Darkheart Thicket are not bad additions to our Mythic Plus pool for 2 reasons. 1 is that they were some of the best dungeons from their respective expansions in terms of bosses, trash, overall experience, and how cool they were in general. And 2, they were current content when WoW was vastly different for classes. We didn't have evokers back then, proper talent trees, and no external player power. The way you engage with the dungeons will be different, and that's for all dungeons that were Mythic Plus before. But we have revamped dungeons as well with Everbloom and Throne of the Tides. Everbloom was from Warlords of Draenor, and it's an open dungeon where nature kind of went berserk, a similar theme to our Emerald Dream patch. The dungeon is different, bosses are weird and unique, and it will be hard to get bored of it since it wasn't designed to be an M+ dungeon before, which makes it even more interesting as such. Same thing for Throne of the Tides, and actually actually even more. An underwater dungeon from Cataclysm. Talk about history here. And it was almost entirely revamped to the modern level of dungeons. It's fun, it's quirky and challenging, and the fact that it has Naga and old god minions is again a refreshing change of pace. Add to these the two Dawn of the Infinite dungeons and you have a dungeon pool that will have a high degree of replayability, which is important since you will be spamming these if Mythic Plus is your content of choice. Might as well have a varied choice of dungeons to keep you from getting bored and burned out. We don't really dabble much into PvP if PvP is your jam, but I can mention the fact that now Battlegrounds got the solo shuffle treatment and you can queue for them solo and blast some PvP action. This is the first step to introduce solo queue for Battlegrounds as well, and what better time to test a fresh approach to PvP content than now. Outside of specific instance content, the open world content is amazing, even if it's limited. I would argue that it's probably good that it's limited, so you aren't forced to endlessly grind it, which is definitely not the case for 10.2. And still, Super Blooms, Emerald Bounties, and Frenzies are a good take on public events to get you nice rewards while being engaged with the content and also requiring from you minimal obligations, if any. You just log in, and if you did any amount of open world questing, you already have dewdrops, which are a fuel for 2 of these events. And if you don't have any, you can do the third event, the big one, the Super Bloom, once per week and have enough dewdrops for the whole week. Plus, anything else you do in the Emerald Dream gives you this currency passively, where you don't even have to think about it or care if you have enough of it. The reputation is so easy to get that in the first week we are already halfway there without actually grinding content for it. I hopped on my alt and went into the Emerald Dream and in one night upgraded both my weapons and 2 pieces of gear. Bringing the rest of my alts in seems like a chill experience and I don't feel like I need to raid or do keys unless I just want the tier set. Let's talk about how easy it is to get the tier set in 10.2. The Catalyst is already out, and if you missed what that is, the Catalyst is this guy over here, which will take an item and convert it into a tier set item, and you can do this once in the first week and again every 2 other weeks. The items that can be converted are regular chests, shoulders, legs, gloves, and helmets that drop in dungeons and raids. Do any of these, and on top of having a chance at an actual tier piece from the raid, you can supplement it with the Catalyst and not have to raid as much as before to complete your set if you don't like raiding. Vault items will also be eligible to be catalyzed as well. Plus, you can get an Omni token from just getting the KSN dungeon achievement, which can also be used to buy a tier set item. Same token drops from getting Challenger 2 rank in PvP or just killing the last boss in the raid for the first time on Heroic. Long story short, you will get your tier set easier and faster if you raid less than in the past with the bad luck protection system. What about your class, your spec, your main? On top of being able to play the Evoker with one of the most interesting specs in augmentation that provides damage and survivability to your teammates, the classes are new and fresh. The talent system has been reworked if you haven't played Dragonflight yet. Not only that, multiple classes have been completely reworked as of 10.2, with the newest being Demon Hunter and Rogue. All of the specs of these 2 classes are getting consistent praises from players and have to be some of the best specs to play in the game currently, whether it is for fun or performance. If you want to play a druid, for instance, then this is definitely the patch for you. This is the druid patch with a lot of customizations added to all of its forms that add up to a lot of exclusive collectible content for druids, which they needed for years. If your jam is to play any other class, the raids bring cool weapons for all classes and specs with unique effects, with a bonus for 2-handed strength users with a new legendary axe that drops from Farok, the last boss of the raid. Professions can craft relevant gear to push raids and dungeons with. Side quests offer some of the most compelling story ever written in WoW. Patches are coming out at a blazing speed with constant class tuning to make sure all specs can do, because they already have, cleared all of the content in the game. So be assured that whatever you play, you'll be able to smack down anything you want in the game. And the season will culminate with a fated ending, similar to Shadowlands, where all raids will be available, scaled to reward season Season 3 eye level gear, so not only will you have diversity in Mythic Plus, but in raids as well further down the patch. The content is good, the classes are good, the story is compelling where we are growing the new Night Elf tree, and all of the devs seem to be on the boat that leads to the WoW game we have been asking for steady and surely. What better time to come back to WoW than now? And we have a helping hand for you already in our 10.2 overview video that goes over all of the cool stuff to do in 10.2 all in one go, so just click it right here on screen and enjoy.